These teachings of the Living Light philosophy were given through the mediumship of Mr. Richard P. Goodwin. Spiritual Awareness Class, CC6.
Our questions and answers this evening, I would like to speak about a thought. Now, you know, according to the teachings, that everything in truth is triune. And so it is with thought. Very few people realize that thoughts are either neutral, electric, or magnetic. Now, I'll try to explain a little bit about that at this time. For example, it has often been stated by this particular teacher that the longer you entertain a level of awareness or thought, the more difficult it is for you to get out of it. The reason why it is difficult, the longer you entertain it in length of time according to how much you believe in the thought that you are entertaining. And so a thought which is coupled with belief, that type of a thought is magnetic. It is like a great magnet that attracts unto itself. Then you have the type of thought that is neutral. For example, you have the thought, it's a beautiful day. That is a neutral type of thought. You don't believe it's a beautiful day. That's another level. You know it is a beautiful day. Why do you know that it is a beautiful day? Because you have been educated that it is a beautiful day. That is a neutral type of thought. Then you have the type of thought that is electrical. That type of thought comes from the depths of your own spirit. It doesn't only come with knowledge, it comes with wisdom, and it comes with understanding. And so it is in the course of any moment, in any day, that we are constantly releasing from our aura one of three types of thought: magnetic, electric, or neutral. And therefore it behooves us to go deeper inside of ourselves and find out from what level the thought has originated. And in finding out what level it is originating on, we will know exactly what will happen to us the longer we entertain it. Now this evening we're going to start with group 1, and you may feel free to ask any questions that you have on any of the subject matter.
I have about a dozen questions, but two are very burning, if I may ask those. If it is true that man, our soul, sets into motion the laws affecting himself, then is it not the soul that determines where and when it will incarnate into form, to whom it wishes to use as a vehicle or mother in which to incarnate, decides the place, astrological aspects, race, and so forth, lessons to be learned here, when it will shed its clay body, etc. And if so, then does it follow that the soul expresses to our guides and teaches how to guide us? There are all levels of guides and teachers, and somehow, despite their varying levels of awareness, they all manage to help us in a direction consistent with that which the soul wishes to go.
And that is indeed a very deep question. The statement has been made in the teachings that whatever happens to us is caused by us, that man is a law unto himself. Just expressed her interest. If that is a true statement, then does not stand to reason and to logic, and that the soul chooses its incarnation and its various experiences. Well, to a certain degree, let me put it this way, perhaps some light could be shed over that. The soul, by laws that it has set into motion, propels itself like a great magnet out into the universe. It does not, to the best of my awareness, pick a particular parent named so-and-so in a particular city, but it does from laws it is set into motion, go along a principle whereby the experiences necessary for its own unfoldment will be guaranteed. And so it is as we step here from day to day. We are never left without choice, but the choice that we have is the moment that we have control of. If we make a choice this moment, we set a law into motion. Now remember, that is one of the minor laws, for we have a major law governing us from all eternity that we're constantly passing through. So man stands ever at the threshold between postponing or fulfilling what he has set into motion. Now, if he is ever postponing his own destiny, then that is the destiny that he alone has set into motion. Now, by this teaching, we don't mean to imply total predestination. After all, we can make a choice at any given moment, but we must choose within the ballpark that we alone have created. For example, some people may have 50 or 60 different variables that they have to work with at any given moment, because that is what that particular soul has set into motion. Someone else may have 120, and someone else may only have 30 or 40. Does that help with your question? Anyone else in group one? Yes, would you rise, please?
I do TM meditation, and I don't concentrate on peace, but I receive peace. And I was wondering if that would be better than your meditation for me.
Well, that is a very interesting question. I would be an absolute fool to say that that was better or that that was worse. I try to remain neutral in these type of things, recognizing for myself, as I do for all others, their divine birthright to choice. However, are you aware that you are not concentrating? Or are you concentrating and not aware that you are concentrating? You see, that's the question that must be asked. Because you see, many people are in the process of concentrating and then are not aware that they're concentrating at all, because they think that concentration is forcing the will. I happen to see a white rose in front of me, and that is caused by the powers of concentration. Now, you see, the first thing is to become aware of what concentration really is. Now, if a person is entertaining the thought of peace during meditation, to some extent they are concentrating, because they're not entertaining the thought of its opposite, or war. Therefore, a type of concentration, to some degree, is taking place. And so I do not see any question in reference to whether or not that particular type of meditation you are doing, or the meditation that is being taught here, is better for you or not. Remember, what works for a person is usually the best thing for them at any given moment. But I would not go so far to say that concentration is not taking place during your meditation. Many people think that they're just meditating when they're concentrating, and they really think they're concentrating when they're really meditating. We understand meditation to be a complete absence of all thought. So if you are experiencing peace during meditation, that only reveals to me as a teacher that in truth you are concentrating. Does that help with your question? Thank you very much. Anyone else in group one? Yes, please rise.
We really haven't talked much about animals. And so I would like to, wonder if you would be good enough to discuss their purpose on earth, their relationship to man, how man can help them in their incarnation, and does the positive acceptance of an animal on the earth determines where it goes after life, or whether it stays in form after life. And would you explain the difference in the relationships between man and animals with respect to their vibrations?
Yes. We have about 18 questions in one, and I'll do my best to share my understanding with the students this evening. And I believe the question is in reference to animals, their purpose in creation, and man's relationship to them and their vibration. It is my understanding at this time that man, his form, is the highest evolved animal on the Earth planet. I presume that you are speaking, of course, about the four-legged people. In reference to these so-called creatures, four-legged animals, they all serve their purpose like the animal known as man serves his purpose. The soul is incarnated into all forms on this Earth planet. The soul, its essence, is in the blade of grass, the tree, as well as the human animal and the four-legged animal. Now, it is a known fact that animals have certain instincts, like self-preservation. They do not have concern for their brethren, whether they eat or don't eat. They only have concern for themselves. And so it is that many times when that tendency, I guess you could call it greed, is expressed in the human animal, people call that the animal instinct. Now, when we recognize and accept that the divine intelligence, God, this all-soul, is expressing through all forms in all universes, when we rise to that level of awareness, we will not be able to see any difference between the ant and the angel, because no difference in truth truly exists. It would be like saying that one man wears a suit and another one wears a pair of dungarees, and therefore there's a difference. The only difference, my good friends, is the covering that the divine is expressing through at any given moment. The animal has a degree of intelligence. It has emotions, it has a degree of memory, and it does carry on after it leaves this physical earth realm. The tree has intelligence. Even the rock has intelligence. There is nothing in form that intelligence, which is God, is not expressing through anywhere, at any time, in any place. Infinite intelligence is just exactly what it says it is. It is intelligence infinitely manifest throughout all form. It has been stated that love is the language of the soul. If you wish to communicate with another form, and you express love from your form, then you will be able to communicate whether or not it is a four-legged person or it's a two-legged one. It won't make any difference. Science has recently proven, what the spiritualists have tried to teach for over 100 years, that the plant and the tree has emotion, that it has senses and feelings, just like the two-legged animal has senses and feelings. So in truth, there is no difference in any form, any place, at any time. Now, how long does the form of an animal stay into the spirit world? We understand that the animal stays in form as long as there is love emanated to the animal, the creature, the insect, or whatever it is. But be rest assured, my good friends, there is no animal, no insect, nothing in creation that someone someplace doesn't love. Whether it's a little pebble in a brook, or it's an ant, or it's a snake, it doesn't matter. there is love emanated to that form.
In the living light, it says that the divine light expresses itself through form, which brings up a fascinating thing to my mind. Does this mean that when we all are evolved high enough and return to the divine light, that this means that there is all imaginable activities, shapes and forms and expressions?
It most certainly does. All things the soul can and does create, absolutely and positively. Remember, what we are in truth is light. Did someone have a question? Group 5? The question is, in reference, I believe, I'm sorry I lost my trend there for just a moment. You'll have to bear with me, class. The question was in reference to, does all things imaginable, can they be created? Is that the basis, the essence of the question? Absolutely and positively. What man usually does not realize is that he is creating all of these shapes and forms and things here, this very moment, this very instant. Because he doesn't see them with his physical vision, is simply because he has not created them into a physical dimension as yet. That does not mean that they do not exist. And this is the great importance of what you entertain in thought. Now again and again, it's been stated that imagination is the doorway to the world of spirit. It is not the world of spirit, but it is the doorway through which we must pass to enter this world of spirit. Now, for example, when you do your exercises as have been given in your study book, like the fountain exercise and the different exercises, you will start to use the creative principle. And that is what it is all about. Now, a person says, well, I don't want just an imagination. I don't want to imagine that I'm contacting the world of spirit. My good friends, what do you think all this form is in this physical world? This is all imagination. This is what has created it, is the divine principle, the creative principle, expressed through imagination. That is why imagination is the doorway to the world of spirit. You must imagine something different so that you can be receptive to something different. You cannot be receptive to something that you cannot imagine. You have to open the door, and the door is opened through imagination. For example, we try to teach the student to concentrate upon peace. Well, if they can't imagine peace, then they cannot be receptive to the level known as peace. That is why imagination is the door. And so it is. I happened to see an elephant in front of me. I just imagined him. I didn't consciously do it, but I triggered the level known as the creative principle level. And in that level, all things can be imagined and created. This is the creative principle, imagination. And so when the world imagines that there is a world of spirit, they will step into that world of spirit. You can't expect a dire materialist to accept a world of spirit because he cannot imagine anything except the imagination of his own materialism. Does that help with your question? Thank you. Anyone else in Group 1? If not, we'll move to Group 2, please.
I would like an explanation of the second state of consciousness, which is slave. What is it a slave to?
Thank you very much for the question. The question is in reference to the second state of consciousness, which is slave. If you will recall, he has stated in his book that the first state of consciousness is self-preservation. When we express this level known as self-preservation, the next state of consciousness is to be a slave to that which preserves us. We make a master out of anything that helps us to stay in the level that is satisfactory to us. Therefore, we move from self-preservation to preserve the self to becoming a slave to the things that we compute preserve us. Does that help with your question? You see, the moment whatever you have faith in, you become, and so does all creation. Whatever you believe, do you understand? Whatever, if you believe that you need such and such and such and such and such and such to preserve you the way you wish to be, you become a slave to that very thing. And this is why a wise man chooses the formless and the free. Because if he is not bound here and now, if he is not aware of the bondage while yet in form, he will most assuredly be aware of the bondage when he leaves this physical dimension, because then he will see the mental world of his own creation. And so we are a slave. That's why he said in a very short way, in a little statement, when he said, when the tools no longer serve the worker begins to serve the tools. And so it is that our soul is serving creation instead of the formless and the free, which is its divine birthright. If our soul was not serving creation, then we would not have faith and fear, we would have freedom. But let us move gradually up the ladder and let go of one attachment for a finer one. Thank you. Any other questions in group 2, please? Yes.
Then the other, in the thing just first, the other states of consciousness here, the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, are these still regarding the same things, how you evolve through?
Absolutely. How you evolve through from level to level and on up through. Absolutely and positively. Remember that it is certainly not the easiest thing in the world. The things that are beneficial to the soul are not usually appealing to the mind, because the mind is a dual instrument and it is magnetically bound by creation, and therefore things of the soul level, things of the spirit which are formless and free and universal, do not often appeal to the mind. They appeal to the heart, they appeal to the feelings, the inner being, but they don't appeal to the mind. Yes. It is better to have a small class of quality interested in the soul and the spirit than to have hundreds packed into this room that are only interested in intellectual entertainment of the mind. We could go either way, you know. It just so happens that I chose some time ago to go this way. Quality, not quantity, is the keynote of spirit. Thank you. Group 3, did you have any questions?
Meditation, if you always sit when you meditate, is there any difference whether you're sitting or laying down?
Yes, there's all the difference in the world between sitting and laying down for meditation, to my understanding and experience. Yes. The divine energy, often called pran, this fluid that flows in the being and in the body, when we are lying down, this fluid is also still. It does not reach the base of the brain and awaken the psychic and spiritual glands that are located in the head, in the forehead. And when a person is in the prone position of lying down and going into any type of receptivity or meditation, they become receptive to what is known as the animal vibration. Now, by that I don't mean animals are bad. I happen to like them very much myself. But they do become receptive to what is known as the animal instinct. They become receptive to those vibrations. Therefore, a person in meditation should keep the spine erect for many good reasons, that being one of them. It is the nature of animals which are in the level of self-preservation to express what the mind computes as greed or selfish, because they're trying to protect themselves in a dog-eat-dog world. And so it is that it is most advisable to be in a sitting position during meditation. Thank you. Group 5 or Group 4? Thank you. No questions in Group 4? All right, then we'll move to Group 5, please.
It's stated that there are 9 levels of consciousness. 6 are given. May you give the other 3?
That's all. Thank you very much. 6 have been given in the living light, and that's all I have been permitted to give publicly. However, I am sure if you get through those 6 levels, you'll reach divine love and be well on your way to divinity and freedom. Thank you. Anyone else in Group 5?
I was just wondering if you could just, how you two talk about fear and faith. Both said they're the same.
Yes. Fear and faith, it's given in the living light that they're the one and the same power, that when this energy is expressed through the functions, you experience what is known as fear. When identically the same energy is expressed through the soul faculties, then you experience what is known as faith. One we understand to be negative, destructive, and the other to be positive and constructive. Now, the truth of the matter is, as I just said, it is one and the same power. Now, they say that the fear of God is the love of God. Well, it couldn't help but be, because it's faith, don't you understand? And so the prophets have taught in the Old Testament, ye shall fear the God your Lord above all things, because in so fearing him you shall love him. And so it is, my good friends, that fear and faith is identically the same. Now, some person says, I have a great fear of that. Well, what they're saying is they have a great faith of that. That's what they have, but they're calling that fear. Now, the key is to rise out of fear and faith and go to freedom. And we get to freedom through understanding. And of course, we get to understanding through tolerance and duty and gratitude. Because we cannot get to understanding, friends, until we open or awaken the first soul faculty. You see, the moment that we entertain in thought that we have it our way and this is the way we understand it, and that understanding doesn't grant the same right to another soul, then what we're in is the first level. We're in the self-preservation. We're trying to preserve what we call our understanding, and therefore we have no tolerance for someone that comes with another type of understanding. You know, the dog doesn't have any tolerance for the needs of another dog that needs to eat also, because it doesn't have understanding. The understanding does not exist in that form, in that way. Look, we look at an animal and we say, such an understanding dog. He understands when it's the hand that feeds him, usually. Now, this is the way it is with many two-legged animals. You know, understanding they got all that you could possibly encompass if they have a need. Then, of course, the moment the need is fulfilled, oh my, they're on their way. Only to return another day, in another time, in another way, because you see, that wasn't real understanding that they took away. Don't you see? That's what spiritualism has experienced for over 125 years. It has shared again and again and again and again its light, its understanding. Multitudes of people have touched its light and gone on and out about their way, to stumble, to fall, to bring some new idea into the universe and into the world, which is their divine right. But what I'm trying to say, my good friends, when we have true understanding, We indeed have tolerance while someone else is expressing their understanding, because otherwise we don't have understanding, not yet. We have opinion, but not understanding. And there's a vast difference between opinion and understanding. You see, opinion needs preservation for its survival. It has nothing to stand on. Opinion is out of the brain. It has no foundation. So recognize and realize the difference between opinion and understanding. Does that help with someone's question? Now we'll go to anyone else in group 5? No one else in group 5, group 4.
Let somebody else ask the first one, or I seem to be asking all the questions in this group.
Now, I don't want to express this evening what self-conscious is. Do you want me to express what self-conscious is?
We have been taught that we are part and parcel of God. The soul is part of God and approves of all, that all we do. The soul approves of all. The soul approves of all we do. I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
All right. Who is the chooser for the soul to come into creation if it is part of God? God chooses then?
Happy to share with you my understanding in reference to that.
That's always confused?
Yes. An affirmation has been made that I am part of God and He approves of all I do. Number one, the living light does not recognize a masculine God. It does not recognize a feminine God. It does, however, state a neutral God. Because in this particular teachings, whenever you're teaching and trying to express a light of understanding, if it is on a level of duality, then it's going to guarantee its opposite. So God, to my understanding, is not masculine and God is not feminine. God is. The soul is a covering for the divine intelligence or spirit. The spirit or divine or infinite intelligence, call it what you will, is totally neutral. It is a power and energy, is the best that I can express it. Being an intelligent power, it expresses itself through form. Now, the first form that expresses itself is what man calls soul. That's the covering of the spirit. It is the soul that chooses. It is not the divine infinite intelligence. If God was a God of choosing, then God would be a God of partiality. And if God was a God of partiality, He would be a God of duality. And if He was a God of duality, then He would be a God of creation. I understand God, the power, to be beyond creation, expressing through creation. Does that help with your question? Yes.
I'm part of God and He approves of all I do. I knew He didn't approve of things I was doing, but...
Well, if a statement is made that I'm part of God and He approves of all I do, well, He couldn't possibly disapprove or approve if it's just a divine power. If man chooses to accept that God approves of all he does, well, of course, that is man's choice. But I do not personally, nor does the living light imply a God of choice or a God of partiality in any way, shape, or form. Because these gods of choice and partiality have caused one ball right after another, and they all have clay feet. Yes. Any other questions in group 6? Yes.
The spirit is the God part, and the covering is the soul. I've been going to ask you to explain those, and you did. From where does the soul come?
From the all-soul.
Is the all-soul God?
God is form, yet God is formless. If you put God into form, do you understand? The moment we put God into form, we put God into the mind where we can express God. You cannot express God without creating a duality. Because the moment you express God, that's like asking, what is truth? The moment you define truth, you no longer have truth. So the moment I try to define God, I lost my God. You cannot define the indefinable. You cannot limit the limitless.
Understand that. I think, you know, I
Yes.
understand what you're saying, and that God is spirit, and we have to consider spirit.
Yes, our spirit is known by spirit.
Right, and this would be beyond words. It would be beyond our mind, really.
Absolutely, because our mind is dual and is not a dual thing.
It could be our heart mind, whatever teaching.
Yes.
But you see, then I still have to ask, where does the soul come from? And it's the all soul. And then at this time at least, can't go any further. And in Discourse 24, this is the creative principle, love, and the things which follow the creative principle, love. And my understanding was that this love is a power, and this power expresses through infinite intelligence and the all-soul, as I read it. And this power, this love, is God. Man, I sure got confused. He expresses through infinite intelligence and all soul. So far, it doesn't come out for me.
Have you studied the entire book, John?
No, I haven't. No,
Perhaps that's the reason. Yes, after you study the book thoroughly, then perhaps we can have a different discussion on it. Yes, I would recommend a thorough studying of it. You cannot define truth, and you cannot define God and still be expressing it. It is not possible.
You see it. Try to do that in the teaching.
No,
You don't think
well, please tell me the page, and I'll be happy to discuss it. All right. This class, kindly be seated. Let us turn to Discourse 24 and read the book. Be kind enough to read it, considering you mothered the idea. Discourse 24, please.
Indeed am I grateful to the law in motion to come to once again be with you. Though extended energy, known as effort, may seem so minute, it has indeed served its purpose. We should like to share with you our understanding of the creative principle. Before it was spoken that there is one law, one God, one power, that man is the law unto himself, that the one law, the great law, is love. Love is a creative principle. From love springs forth belief, and from belief desire, and from desire will and action, creating all things seen and unseen. We understand that God, known as love, the one great law, sustains all things in all worlds, that man is the creator, and that this power is the sustainer. Do not misunderstand, my friends. We are speaking of belief, not that of your consciousness, conscious mind, but on the soul level. All things that you experience in your so-called reality is but the image held together by the power of love, shaped by belief, strengthened by desire, and moved by will. This infinite power, known as love, is expressed through creation. Deep within our being, we create through the power of belief all things in all places at all times. The question may well be asked, then who believed and the tree came to be? Who believed and the stars were placed in the sky? I say unto you, there is a power. It is known as love. It expresses through what is commonly referred to as infinite intelligence, or all soul. This belief has and does create all these things. Therefore, my children, it behooves us to realize and to recognize that in miniature this power is within us. Break through the barriers of the layers of mind, and you will find these beliefs, some created recently and some of very ancient origin. Without belief, there is no creation. Without creation, love does not express itself. This power, properly channeled, brings unto us the great light of eternal truth, and the light shall be known by the light. We are daily given opportunity to serve the divine, and yet so often things seem to distract us from the only thing that is worthy of our attention. As the light within you shines, it shall call forth from the darkness the souls who are seeking, and the purpose of this divine love expression shall be fulfilled. My dear children, all things are but belief, image, and this is why it is said that we live in a world of illusion. My children, we are governed by the laws of belief beneath our conscious level. The blind man does not experience the road unless through education he becomes to believe. To the power that is, all things are possible to those that believe. All of our experience works through the steps mentioned before, which I shall again give to you: love, belief, desire, will, creation. Think about that, my children. I know that if you take it into your silent sanctuary within, that it will reach the light within you. Many in your world and ours are not yet ready for this truth. Good night.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I can give my understanding of that. In that love as a noun is not exactly the same thing as love as a verb. But love as a noun, as it is expressed in this particular discourse, is as the matrix of the universe, the master law of the universe, the master force and the master power, which is, one might think of as a matrix, a mold. And that through the steps of creation, as given in the discourse, that man or the individual completes the steps of creation. Man does not actually create, but man completes the steps of creation. The steps are already there, and he simply follows them. That belief, as stated in this discourse, is the soul coming into being through the fact that it does believe. If it does believe, it is then duality. It's the beginning of duality. Because simply to be aware that it is itself is to believe on that level that it is itself. And being itself, it is then apart from God or in duality. The desire is the next step down or out, that to simply believe that man is a soul doesn't mean he's done anything about it. But to desire is thought, or man forming his own matrix mentally. And so with that step man is a mental being. And as man gives energy of this being that he now is, he then goes on to complete creation through the will.
Thank you very much for expression of that particular discourse. I'd like to express on that discourse, this is a very important discourse. Remember, friends, we can only understand what we're receptive to. So that's why I'm asking the class to express on that discourse, because we cannot understand anything that we're not on a level of receptivity. Like to express your understanding of it?
This means to me that when we came into being as individual souls, that it is our responsibility to do God's work, but He doesn't want to do it. It's up to us. That's why He gave us this ability and our love, our knowledge, and that's why God is neutral. So that if we say this is a lousy world, God, why did He make such a lousy world as this? Look at all the wars and everything. What we're talking about is what we're doing. It's our responsibility, not God's. That's what this means to me, that if people are starving to death, why don't we do something about it? God made us with our will and our knowledge, so we're perfectly free. We are God. All of us, and if we get enough of us together, we're a bigger God. That's what the answer is to me.
Definitely. Thank you very, very much. Would you like to express on that discourse, number 24?
Where it says, the question may well be asked, then who believes in the tree came to be? Who believes in the stars were placed in the sky? I say unto you, there is a power, it is known as love. It expresses through what is commonly referred to as infinite intelligence or all soul. In reality, are we not infinite intelligence? Is spirit itself not? If we have the power to create, and if it expresses through form, and yet infinite intelligence, isn't this a paradox where it expresses through what is commonly referred to as? I'm just throwing that question out.
Thank you very much. Let us try to be receptive to an understanding that everything that is has always been. There is nothing new in the universes. There never was, there never will be. We only become newly aware of it. For example, so we can say that, fine, the rocket ship is new. The rocket ship is not new. Neither are the planets in space. They have always been somewhere in some dimension. A chair is not new. It has always been. What I'm trying to say is that man does not originate. There is an infinite intelligence. There is a dimension in which all things exist, all things that will ever be, all things that have ever been exist in a dimension. Man simply becomes aware of them at various so-called ages on this earth realm. If God is infinite intelligence, and man is a part of this infinite intelligence, that is, that this infinite intelligence is expressing through man, then it is within the realm of possibility for man to tap the infinite, the divine, at any given moment, that he so chooses if he's willing to get his big bloated nothingness, as Emerson said, out of the way so the divine intelligence can express itself. Now, we understand in serenity that God expresses through man, not to man. That we find God in everything if we choose to seek God in everything. Our God, remember, is ever as small or as large as we permit that God to be at any given time. Now, we may curse him when things don't go well, and we may bless him when things are going beautiful. What we're doing is cursing and blessing ourselves. We're cursing and blessing our inabilities or abilities at any given moment to be receptive to the infinite intelligence to which all things are possible if man would only accept it. Now that is entirely up to man, and so we find throughout history that the gods of man are constantly in a process of change because they're all created gods. And anything that's created is going to go through change. So if we will consider being receptive to God, if you wish to call it God, infinite intelligence, if you prefer those words, let us just be peaceful and let that great power do its work. And its work is infinite and intelligent. Think. They say that God does this and God does that. Well, if God's going to do anything, what is God? If God is infinite intelligence, then it's simply intelligence infinitely manifest, and that's God. And so we are expressing intelligently, at least to some degree we hope, so God is working. When man works, God works. And when man stops working, God stops working. And if things go bad, it's because we denied our own divinity. God didn't do it to us, couldn't do it if he wanted to, for the simple reason that it's just a plain old divine, infinite, intelligent, neutral power. And the only time it works is when man works. So let us work with God in the sense of just go to work and we will express.
Getting an inspiration here, then the words that Jesus left us, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven, is the law of non-interference.
Absolutely and positively. When we get ourself, the little self, out of the way of the divine intelligence, then heaven will manifest on earth. That is heaven, all things in harmonious motion, if that's what they want to call heaven. Certainly. Remember that all of our problems are self-created. The teachings of serenity are whatever happens to us is caused by us. And the sooner that a person will recognize and accept that great truth, it's not John Doe's fault and it's not Mary Jane's fault. This is the great difficulty in getting the mind to accept the divine neutrality. That whatever happens to us is caused by us. It's not someone else's fault. Now remember, if you have emotional reaction to change, to the degree of your emotional reaction to change, that reveals to you, my friends, how attached you are to your own level. If you have great difficulty with changes coming to you, it's very simple. Say, thank you, God, I can see I'm 90% attached to this. Isn't that fantastic? That's how bound I am, don't you see? If we're so attached to our opinions and to the way we think that life should be, all we have to do is pause a moment and depending on how emotional we get when change comes about, that says, there you are, friend, you're bound by those many chains. That's exactly what the law is teaching us. Yes, does that help, Dave?
Because I've had this experience and I've been seemingly, I felt very, at the beginning of this spiritualism, I was at a very lucrative job. And I had this feeling of just complete being crushed, until I went home and realized that I had to spiritualize it because it was getting me down. And I had to realize that there was a reason for this, that there was a higher law in operation, something I had done had created this. I didn't like it, I had done it, but nevertheless, I had to release it, and I was working again.
Thank you very much. Remember, students, there is no freedom as long as you entertain in thought that anyone outside of you is causing you joy. There is no freedom as long as you entertain in thought that anyone outside of you is causing you misery. There is no freedom if you insist on giving power to another human soul. I don't care whether the human soul is in the flesh or out of the flesh. If you insist on giving power to something outside of you by saying that this one causes me joy and that one causes me misery, every time you entertain that type of thinking, you are binding your soul to creation, and you are guaranteeing to experience the opposite. If we cannot find God inside of ourselves, we will never find God outside of ourselves. It is impossible, because the light is known by the light, and we cannot find the light without until we first find the light within. So if whatever you are seeking, find it first inside yourself. Because if you don't find it first inside of yourself, you will never find it outside of yourself. And that is why the Bible prophet said, "O physician, heal thyself." We cannot help another until we can help ourselves. That's why the statement is made that God helps those who help themselves. So I can only stress to you, students, try to become more aware of what you're entertaining in thought, and try to stop giving this life-giving power to people, to things outside of yourself. Then you will express this so-called divinity. Then this peace that passeth all understanding will manifest in your lives. But you are denying the possibility every time you think that someone else is doing this or that, and that is disturbing you. You're giving away the greatest power that you will ever have in that kind of thinking. Thank you.
Because it really is a sticker for people who are going through metaphysics or spiritualism or spiritual unfolding. The question has been asked, I've heard many people say, I've said it myself, this is a test when something comes in our way that we have to pass.
Well, that's a nice cop-out, unless we want to accept that we're testing ourselves.
That's what I wanted to ask.
I think it's a nice cop-out. You know, I've seen it happen all over. It's just beautiful to witness.
But
who's tested? Well, you think I'm going to give someone power to test me? No. Why should I? If I'm going to give it to anyone, I'll give it to the power that gives it to me. We're testing ourselves is what we're doing, and you know, oftentimes we enjoy doing it. We say, oh, what a day I've had. Oh, God, I tell you, I've just killed myself off today. Well, it was just a test, Lord, just another test. Well, we tested ourselves, of course. Remember, we're more than one person. But how many times are we going to let that other person test us? It's a good cop-out.
No, I've heard it so many times, but I often want to go, who's testing you?
Well, the thing is, I don't understand if it's in spiritualism, they teach the law of personal responsibility. So if we're responsible personally to ourselves, who are we letting test us? Huh? That's right. We've given the responsibility away. And therefore it's no longer personal. No, I don't believe that God has sent me here to be miserable. I do, however, accept that I have set certain laws into motion. because that is personally demonstrable to me, absolutely and positively. If a law works today, and it is demonstrable, then it worked yesterday. And if it worked yesterday, it worked the year before, under the same application. And if it worked the year before, it worked the centuries before that. So, if whatever happens to me is caused by me, I came into this world in certain circumstances and conditions because I set something into motion. Now, just because I'm ignorant, perhaps, of what I set into motion, that does not exempt me from the fulfillment of the law. The law is totally impartial. It works. No, I do not accept a partial God. Absolutely and positively not. But I do accept the power of thought, depending on what level that thought is being expressed from. Yes. Anyone else now in Group 6? Otherwise, we must move to Group 7. Our time is really past due. Group 7, did you have any questions?
You just said that I can't stand here and blame somebody for some trouble.
I didn't say you couldn't. I said it doesn't. Wisdom certainly doesn't dictate it.
Yeah. Now, no. Likewise, I can't stand here. Is it wrong for me to stand here and say, well, smile at me, it makes me feel good? That's.
I wouldn't say that's right or wrong. That depends on what it does to you and what you do to it. For example, if you sit down and someone smiles at you and that makes you feel good, and the next day you sit down and the person doesn't smile at you and makes you feel bad, then you've given power to something that's causing you nothing but grief. Well, is it worth it? Is it worth it? You're an engineer.
Well, but
is it worth it?
I hate to think it isn't worth it that I can't accept a smile from her and feel good.
If you will accept a scowl in the same receptivity that you accept a smile, then you can be free because you'll be balanced.
Then I have no feelings.
I wouldn't say that. I have lots of feelings, and I know a lot of people dislike me, and then I happen to know there's some that like me. And so I accept them all on the same level, and I just think it's wonderful. And I have a lot of feelings. But it doesn't bother me whether they call me or they don't call me.